Alright guys, I'll be starting here in a minute. I think we're a little bit early. I should have grabbed something to drink. So today, let's see, what do you know what time it is here? I thought I'd talk about. I was going to call it secrets to my success, or my first 50,000 a month rental income, because that's a milestone. And I mean, actually, 10 grand a month was a milestone too. It's funny. I was watching a show called Engineered Truth. It's another YouTube channel. I think the guy's Matt. He covers various topics. But she's an engineer, I guess. I haven't watched that many of his shows, actually. But he interviewed a guy, John Somez or something like that. And he's a programmer. He has a show called Simple Programmer. And he was interviewing this John, and John, I'm going to guess the guy's about 35 years old. I don't know. I actually wrote him an email because I might want to collaborate with him on something. But he's got a show, Simple Programmer, and kind of a fit dude. And but he was on the Engineered Truth guy's channel talking about how he had $10,000 a month coming in rental income, which is that's a milestone. It's good. Everybody. I'm way beyond that, but I'm also I'm not 35. I'm in my early 50s now. So, but a lot can happen really fast, and I thought that was kind of cool, and just because it's neat. It's a neat milestone. Really, even $1,000 a month coming in is pretty cool. But 5,000, and then pretty soon, and you always count this stuff up. I remember very well when I had about $3,000 a month income coming in, and I was kind of excited about that. And when I sold the company, I had a cabinet shop, and when I sold my cabinet shop, after I was probably 28 years old. I'd been in business 9 years, 8 months. So I started that business right about when I was just about 19, and I'm probably 18 actually. But I remember being 28 when I sold the company. I sold my company for like $250,000. That was for my cabinet shop. But the reason I sold it is because a buddy of mine had been over, and he said, "Tom, you own this, right?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "You own that, right?" And he goes, "And you own this?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Why are you even working?" He goes, "I think you're a millionaire." And he was right. I was already a millionaire at 28. And so I sold my cabinet shop, and I think I told the story about that. I sold my cabinet shop. So now I had another, actually I think I took $100,000 down. I took a note for $150,000. This is on my cabinet shop. That's just the business that I'd created. I still own the real estate, and they were paying me rent. And then I sold the building too. I sold the building too. So I had a pretty good chunk of cash because I sold that building for, I don't know, probably $250,000, maybe $225 as I remember. $225. I didn't know very much on it, and then I had another $100,000 that I got down. Plus they paid me off on the business, so I had another $150 or something like that later on. So pretty good chunk of cash, and already being a millionaire. Or I had already had $1 million in real estate, equity, let's say. And but it's pretty neat when you get to where you have income. I mean, like a lot of income. And, it's all relative to your situation. Even when you got, like I say, I remember very well, for some reason it really sticks out in my mind, when I had $3,000 a month rental income coming in, and I think it was because I actually could live on $3,000 a month, if I wanted to. My problem is I spend a lot of money. on really mostly on real estate. So, and I'm sorry, I'm trying to pull up my own show here so I can see questions. Here it is. So I actually got to open it up on a laptop to see what's going on. Okay. Oh, hey Harlem King, glad you're here. So, but that's where you want to get. You want to get where you have monthly income coming in, and like I said, that $3,000 a month. I was mostly flipping in the beginning, so I was buying houses and lots, and I had, I mean, really. So I'm going to back up, and I'll just kind of take you through it. So I started. I bought, the building that I bought, and I flipped a couple of buildings, and I flipped a couple of small houses. And so I had, I started getting like $100 a month coming in on a note. I'd buy a lot for 10 grand, I'd sell it for 25 grand, I'd get $15,000 down, and I'd carry a note for $10,000, meaning somebody gave me $15,000, they bought the property for 25, they owed me 10. I was taking notes. I was doing notes at like 10% interest back then, and so they'd be paying me a monthly payment of anywhere from $100 to $200 a month, and I kept buying properties for like 10 grand and selling them for 20 and 30, and so every time I did, I'd have extra $5,000 that I didn't have the month before, plus I'd have another $100 a month coming in note income, not even rental income, note income, and I had enough note income I could live on. And then I hit a pretty big one. I bought a property for bought 70 acres. I paid $140,000 for it, and I sold it for $520,000, and I gave a 10% commission on that. Actually, they only took. Actually, I take it back. They only took a 5% commission. They could have had 10. I actually put it up there, but they didn't read it right, and they put themselves down for like a 5% commission. And so, so I ended up saving $26,000 on that sale. But that was just at the fault of the agents. They just missed it, and I didn't correct it because they were happy. So, but anyways, so in that one I made, like I said, I made about. It was $520,000. I bought it for $140,000. I sold it for $520,000. So the agent's commission on that was about $30,000. So 30. So that left it about $490,000. Got my $140,000 back. Yeah, I was carrying a note for I think I want to say $295,000. Yeah, it was $295,000 because it was about 10%. Yeah, that's what it was. $295,000. 10% interest, so I was getting $2,950 a year, and just in interest. And the payments were $2,500 a month. I remember that. I was getting $2,500 a month, so I was getting $30,000 a year, just on that one note, which was really cool. And in the last couple of years, they actually ended up having trouble, and I almost had to foreclose on them, but they ended up giving the property back, and then I flipped it again, and I made more money, all cash that time. And the person that I had, okay, so sometimes when you get in trouble, I've given up one property like this, but I've never been foreclosed on. If they're going to foreclose on you, you can deed it to them, or usually they'll give you the option. That's what I did. I gave people the option if they couldn't make their payment. I only did it one person. I have had several people that have actually gone into not foreclosure, but they defaulted on their payments, couldn't pay their payments when times got tough, and I just gave them the property. I said, you know what, you've been making payments for 2 years or whatever. This other $5 grand, I don't want the property back, and I just signed off and I gave them. I eliminated the second for them, and I just let them have it, and I could afford to do it, and I had already made money, and I didn't really want the property back anyways, to be honest, because I was done with that phase of what I was doing. And but this larger note, I ended up having to foreclose, or initiate foreclosure on them. And I said, look, just deed it to me in lieu of foreclosure. And what that means is, I hope you never have to learn this, but if you can foreclose and take somebody's property away, or they can simply deed you the property back so they don't have to be foreclosed on. Because in other words, they're saving you the trouble. They're just saying, here, you can have it. Now, I know like banks, if you borrow money from banks, they don't even want you to deed it to them. They want to foreclose on you because for whatever reason, they don't really want it on their books that way. And they don't want to just be handed the property back. So, because I've seen people deed back to the bank, and the bank says, we ain't taking it, but we'll foreclose on you. So, anyways, hopefully you don't have to learn that lesson, because it's not fun on either side. And I never, like I said, I've never had a property taken from me. But I did have a property that I bought 80 acres, man, just before a big downturn. And I bought it with a buddy of mine, a school friend, and we each put $50,000 down. And then, man, the economy just went belly up, and this was kind of, property was out a little ways. And, you know, I just determined, I said, man, I don't think this property's worth what we owe on it. And that can happen, so that's why I'm not much of a speculator anymore. And unfortunately for me, my friend had actually paid an additional $50,000 down on the property to cut his payments, even though we were paying on the same note. Let's see, I haven't seen people. Yeah, anyways, so he paid an extra 50. So now, and I'm sitting here suggesting, hey, let's give this thing up because it's not worth what we owe on it. And then he tells me, oh, hey, I paid another 50 down on that thing. So he was going to lose 100 grand. I was going to lose 50. But I did the math on it, and I was like, he was a buddy. So I said, all right, look, it still ain't worth what we owe on it, even with you paying that extra 50. So I said, let's just give it back, and now I'll owe you 25 since you paid down 50 that I didn't know about. So that's what we did. We gave it back, and then it was painful because I would have never done what he did, but he did. He did what he did, and I wanted to split the losses evenly. So I said, okay, I'll owe you 25, and I paid him $25,000 later. And so we both lost $75,000, which, you know what, when you lose money like that, it doesn't feel good. But because you're making money, you can offset capital gains with capital losses. So I can't tell you exactly the numbers on that, but if I lost $75,000, I probably recouped 40% of that. So because you know, I was getting killed on my gains. You know, you're paying, back then I think I was paying almost 40% capital gains, which is really horrible. But so you can offset capital gains with capital losses. So when I lose money, I can take those losses, and then the next time I make money, I don't have to pay the money that I have credit. In other words, if I have a $20,000 loss, I get to take that away from the gain, and I kind of save 40% back then on the money that I make the next time. So that's the good thing. Yeah, capital gains are great. Capital losses, though, it's really not exactly fair the way the government works on that, because if you lose money, they'll only, unless you're continuing to risk and take chances and make money, you'll never recoup it all, because they only let you write off $3,000 a year of capital loss. But yet when you make a gain, they take their whole piece, you know, immediately. But if you're an investor, then, like I say, you'll recover the capital losses much more quickly, because, you know, like I said, even though, you know, I lost 75,000, I probably made 100,000 or more that year, and instead of paying 40% on 100,000, I was paying 40% on 25,000, because I offset 75,000 of it. Anyways, probably getting off track here a little bit, but so like I said, those notes I probably had, you know, I don't know, I think I had about $10,000 a month coming in just in real estate notes. You know, this is when I'm about, I don't know, 28 years old, and then I'd been concentrating in on land at that time. Then I kind of I'd moved to another state, and then I concentrated on buying apartment buildings, and I bought quite a bit of other stuff too, bought some more houses and stuff too. But you know, the apartment complex seems like, see, I had 34, I had about 17,000 a month coming in there, and then I had you know, 10,000 a month on notes. There's 27,000 a month coming in. Then I had 2 or 3 other little houses bringing in, you know, maybe, I don't know, $2,000 between those 3 houses back. This is more than 20 years ago, maybe 30 years ago, and so that takes me to 30,000. Oh, then I bought another apartment building, another 24 units, so that brought me another 12,000 a month. So 12 and 18, there's 40 right there, plus another, like I said, a 10 on the note, so there's 50,000. So I was sitting pretty fat. I mean, I felt great, you know, and keep in mind though, I had mortgages on some of this stuff, but I always go for kind of accelerated mortgages. That's just me being conservative. I like to I like everything to pay off in 10 years. Just I've always been that way. I like everything to pay off in 10 years. And it's also, it makes my payment higher, but it also makes me a more conservative investor because I have to have enough money coming in to pay this big fat mortgage and still have cash flow for myself to live. And so, you know, a month might go by and maybe I'm only bringing in $3,000 a month that I can put in my pocket, but I might be paying, you know, I don't know, $6,000 to $10,000 a month principal on a loan where I might have a $14,000 a month payment, but $10,000 a month of that is going to the principal in paying down the loan fast and quick. And so, so that, like I say, when I hit that $50,000 a month rental income, and this is a long time ago, I make a lot more than that now, but when I hit that point, it's not, I didn't have a ton of cash in my hands, but I had to have enough money coming in that I could pay my taxes at the end of the year, because I was still making a lot of money because I was paying the principal down on all these things. Things were paying off very quickly. You know, it's pretty neat when you have $1 million loan, or $600,000-800,000 loan, whatever, and you know, it just seems like, I don't know, 6-7 years goes by and you look and you go, oh my gosh, I only owe $80,000 on $1 million loan. That's some serious pay down. You know, that is a serious payment, and that is an aggressive reduction of mortgage. And it's funny. My mom had dated this guy, real interesting guy. He was kind of a hermit, and I rented from him. I rented a house from him for $1,000 a month. This is like more than 30 years ago. And nice guy. His name was Buddy, and I won't say his whole name, but man, this guy was a trip. Talk about frugal. This guy had an old Volkswagen, like a '59 Volkswagen. He had some really nice cars. We became friends, and he showed me some of the stuff he had. He lived like a hermit on 2.5 acres, and he had I mean, you looked at his house, it was like a facade. It looked like a beautiful home in the front, but when you realize it was just a facade on a small shack. And then he had 2.5 acres of sewing machines and every hobby you can imagine. He'd buy whatever he wanted. He had all kinds of money, but he was so frugal. He would go to the auctions and he would buy dented canned goods. I guess you could buy, you know, peaches and beans or whatever. If they had a dent, the grocery stores just send them off to auction. So he'd buy all of his groceries at this auction once a week, and he'd buy all these dented grocery goods. So he'd get his, you know, his canned fruit or whatever for, I don't know, 20 cents on the dollar. But he even told my mom that he'd take a stick of gum and he'd rip one stick into 7 pieces, and that would be a week's worth of gum. So this guy was extreme. Okay, but anyways, hey, however you get there, which kind of goes to my point of what I was saying about, you know, the secrets to my success. Man, I'm telling you, hard work. It's not what everybody wants to hear, but it's sacrifice. And like Buddy, he did it in his own way. You know, he ripped a stick of gum in 7 pieces. He ate out of cans, but just buy canned food from the stores. And skinny guy, he stayed healthy, but he would he sacrificed in his way. That's how he got there. But it gets even better. He worked out at a place called Rocket Site Road, way out in the desert. This is like way out in the desert, like Edwards Air Force Base area. They have a thing called Rocket Site Road, and they got a hill out there that they test the rockets. anyhow, I guess he would get a byproduct of rocket fuel. It's kind of like a kerosene, or the equivalent of kerosene. And he would get a pan, and he would just take these drippings that were going to just soak in the dirt or get thrown away or whatever, and he would just whatever collect this waste, which, you know, in the end was the equivalent of kerosene. And then in his little car, he had the passenger seat. There wasn't one, so that was an empty void where he could put his canister of rocket fuel waste, or kerosene, and that's how he would heat his place. So this guy was extreme. You know, I like to live. I like to eat well. That's one thing I can tell you. You know, I've sacrificed. I've gone without. I've driven not so good at cars. Lived in very tiny homes. You know, I save money that way. Keep my overhead low, and that's what I suggest everybody do, is keep your overhead low. And I always ate well. I always eat well. I've always, you know, never went without eating well. And another thing funny about me is I never did my laundry. I always had my laundry. I go to the Chinese laundry and have them wrap everything up, because I always felt like my time was more valuable than to do the laundry. And I just didn't like it, probably, to be truthful. But it all goes to, if you're gonna make money, you can't be lazy. You cannot be lazy. You know, and you know, in all respect to the folks that ask, some people ask questions, and you'll see them on here. They ask questions, and it's like, how do you buy property? And I'm like, man, I've done 100 videos on how I buy property, and you're going to ask me, you know, to talk to you about it? Look, there's, and if you're one of those guys watching now, man, just start from the beginning and watch, and you'll see exactly how I buy property. And I got more to teach, but really that's the gist of it, is man, just search and look and be the first one there, and know values. I mean, you guys got to know. You got to know values, and that's kind of where the lazy thing comes in. You know, some people think they'd like to just talk to you, and it's just going to rub off on them, but it's not. And everything that I tell you in these videos is no different than I would tell you if we were having a one-on-one conversation. And believe me, I got enough people around me in my own community that, you know, that ask me, you know, hey, can you help me? And I, you know, of course, it's somebody I'm eye to eye with that I, you know, can't avoid, and I try to help, and so I tell them, and I don't tell them to watch my videos, because I don't really want anybody to be that directly affecting me and competing with me here locally. But not that it really matters. There's a ton of real estate out there. It doesn't matter. But I also know that most people do not work like I do, and believe me, that's the advantage. You have to want it, and you have to work for it. You know, it's like the other day, I thought I was going to have a great story. I'm going to show the video anyways. I'm coming back, I'm running late, and I see an estate sale. It says estate sale. I'm like, oh man. When I see estate sale, I think that house is for sale. And I didn't have time, but I go, I gotta go. And I turned around, and I flipped on my video camera, and I showed everybody. I haven't showed you guys yet, but I'm showing, here's an estate sale. This is where you turn around when you don't have time. You still turn around. Turn around, zipped in, very cool, gigantic ranch-style home. I mean, it's like a super long ranch-style house, and then they added on to it. They enclosed the garage, added another garage, and added another, basically, master bedroom. So this is like the longest ranch-style home I'd ever seen. And I walked in, everybody's looking at all the stuff for sale. You know, they got racks. Somebody died, obviously. So they're selling off everything in the house. And I said, hey, I go, is the house for sale? And they go, yep, that's a realtor over there. And I walk over and introduce myself. We get to talking. I said, man, I want to buy this place. And I really did. I really, really dig the place. And so I walked all through it, and we walked around, and who knows, I still might get it, so I'm not going to give you all the details. But I said, this is what I'll give you. And he's like, ooh. And he says, well, we were going to put, 40 grand in it. We were going to fix it up. And I said, man, you're going to put 40 grand in it. I said, you're looking at, for you guys to do it, it's probably going to take you 6 months to do it. And then at the end of 6 months, the market could be changed, the interest rate could be higher, and who knows, some place could be vandalized, because I've had that happen. And so and he says, you know what? He goes, I can't argue with it. He goes, I see your logic in it, because they aren't prepared to really fix this thing up like you could. And that's not only that, but this property also has an additional lot, a vacant lot next to it. And so I'm thinking, the deal I offered is an amount that I could resell the house for, plus a little more than that, and then I get a free lot that's worth 70, 80 grand. So that was my thoughts on this. This is recent. So anyways, although I got a text from the agent yesterday that they were thinking about it, they declined my offer. And I said, okay, thanks. And there's a couple little issues too with that property that aren't obvious to most people, that other people will find out, but they're not insurmountable. But again, this is the advantage when you've been doing property as long as I have, or you know your own area as well as you could know, is you'll know what you can do. You'll know things that you can do that make things work that other people may not realize they can make work. So anyways, I made my offer. They declined it today, but they may come back. That's been my experience, and if they do, I'll buy it, but only if they take the offer that I gave them, because I'm in this business to make money. And I know that there is always going to be another deal, which I had somebody that was recently was wanting to look at a property. In fact, it was if you look at the house that I investigated a couple days ago, the one I thought I was going to have somebody jump out of the closet and mug me or attack me. I was actually looking at that for a friend, and he was disappointed because they declined our offer, and he was starting to have a little offers remorse. He kind of wishes maybe I offered more, and he went back and I think did, but they decided they're asking twice what it's worth anyway. So, but he doesn't understand yet that there's always another deal. So believe me, the deals are out there. They're not going to land in your lap. Once in a while, but rarely are they going to just fall in. Nobody's going to say, hey, here's a deal. It doesn't work that way. You got to do the work that I've been telling you that I do. That's how you get a deal. You dig and you're first there. You're not lazy. Believe me, most everybody is lazy, or most everybody is, or they're just disinterested. If you're disinterested, fine. But if you want to make money in this business, it's about being smart and taking action. And when I say being smart, I mean that means you have to educate. You can be very smart and just and miss things your whole life. You have to put the work in. You have to dig. Call on that sign. Be the first one there. You see a house that's kind of going apart and looks like hell, go find out who owns that place. I don't care if you got to talk to the tenant and find out who the landlord is, or look up the tax assessor's records and write a letter. And hey, MJ, but you've got to do the work. And you know what? If you're not doing it right now, man, you're wasting time. People wonder. I used to own a sports bar, and I don't watch sports. When I'd walk in, people say, who's winning? Or people walk in, they look at me and they go, hey, who's winning? And I'd go, I don't even know who's playing. I don't watch sports. And like I say, I own a sports bar and didn't watch sports. And the reason is, it drives me crazy to watch millionaires making millions in front of me while I'm sitting here drinking a beer, twiddling my thumbs. Can't do it. Yeah, it just reminds me of I'm watching other people get wealthy while I'm sitting on my ass. And believe me, if you're not out there trying to make money, that's what you're doing. You are. That's what you're doing. If you're not taking time to get ahead, then what are you doing? What are you doing? You can come home, you can watch news, you can watch sports, you can go to the bar and have a couple of beers after work, but guess what? That's fun, that's social, and believe me, my social life suffered quite a bit in the very early days because I was focused. I want to make money. I don't want to work my whole life, and that's if you feel like me, then this is what it takes. You work it, and so, anyways, that's probably like the most disappointing thing anybody ever wants to hear, is that It's not like there's just this little secret, you know what I mean? There's some secrets, and I'm sharing them with you, but they're not like you can snap your fingers. It's not like, oh, you got this little secret that's going to make you rich. No, the other half of it is you got to work your ass off. Your eyes got to be this big. You got to always look around. You have to, you'll develop a sixth sense. You'll be like, huh, that something don't look right, and you know what? You're probably right. Or somebody will say, oh, you know what? There's a house, abandoned house over on our street, and you go, oh, really? Where do you live? You know what? And then you find out. You go over that street, you go find that house, go find out who owns it. That's the difference. Because, believe me, so many times, and it's like I told you, if you guys haven't seen my video, $5 million breakfast, okay? $5 million breakfast. Watch that, because I wish it was me. It's not me. I mean, I explain how I made $5 million on one deal over a period of 20 years, but that's not what I'm talking about. $5 million breakfast. Look up that video and watch that if you haven't yet. That's two farmers sitting in a coffee shop. All right, MJ's bought a first lot. Glad to hear that. Hope you make a lot of money. If you did your research, man, you will. Anyways, so back to my story. These guys, the $5 million breakfast. That's a guy that's sitting in a coffee shop like I did every single day, eating my ham and eggs at 6:30 in the morning, because I was always up early. And he overhears two farmers talking about another farmer that died, and that they were going to sell his property off Friday, and that people were going to go there Sunday. And this builder overheard him, and he went to that sale on a Sunday, and he was the only one there. And the people that represented the folks, the heirs of the guy that owned the ranch, they were from Oklahoma, where $100 an acre was normal. And this guy, it was a Century 21 agent, and the Century 21 agent, she didn't know real estate, to be quite honest. And so they end up making a deal. He offers them $1,000 an acre, and they accept. And we're talking 160 acres. 160 acres that was worth about $35,000 to $40,000 an acre. And I think it was probably worth about at least $40 an acre. Anyhow, it had a couple homes too, not that even mattered. But so that guy bought that thing, and then he had to wait out the probate, and he was just nervous as hell for the next couple months, as you might imagine, because he knows as soon as he buys this. In fact, before he even had it purchased completely, he already had two big builders set up, like big home builders set up to buy it from him. And he closed that deal, and he sold both. He sold it in two pieces for just about $5 million. So he made $5 million by just keeping his eyes open, and he did it with 160 grand. And like I said, that could have been any of us, right? And even if we didn't have $160,000, if we had our name on that contract to buy, believe me, the money would be right there. You can find anybody that they'd loan you the money at 20% or 10%. You could borrow it at 50%. You know what I mean? If you're gonna make $5 million. So no, I don't tell people exactly how much money I make, but I make quite a bit. But anyways, back to yeah. Now I can tell you, I make more than I ever thought I'd make, and I make far more than I actually need. Anyways, back to the farmer. So anyhow, that guy sold that. He sold that, and then actually went to Oregon, and he bought. I think he bought. I forget what he bought. It was some huge amount, like 11,000 acres he bought, and then he bought that, and then a lumber company paid him so they could clear cut it, and they gave him another property in exchange for the clear cutting, and he made, I don't know, it sounded like he made another several $1 million after that with the $5 million that he had, because he went to Oregon. He said, I'm retiring. That's where he wanted to go. Anyways, it is easier to make money with money. For certain it is. But when it comes to real estate, the key is having the deal. You got to have the deal. If you have the deal, you have an advantage over the guy with the money, because the guy with the money, yeah, he can buy anything that's presented to him, but really you've got the rights to make the big money with whatever you whatever you put together. And it's just like that I told you earlier about the $300,000 or $400,000 I made on the 70 acres, and a rock's throw from here. There's a property I bought for I bought it for $110,000. That's a good example of keeping my eyes open. I drove by and I saw this old man. Great. We got a dumbass on the. Anyways, I see this guy walking. I see this guy walking into his office, and he's an old guy. And I thought, man, this guy looks like he might be ready to retire. And so I called it. He was in an insurance office. I called the insurance office and I said, hey, you interested in selling that place? And he told me, he goes, no. He goes, no, I don't want to sell it. And then 2 weeks later, I get a call from one of my tenants, and he says, hey, Tom, I got an opportunity to it looks like we got kids on here, huh? Yeah, I doubt you even have one, okay? Anyways, my tenant calls me, and he tells me that I can, he tells me that he wants to buy this property. You got it, MJ, I'll do it. The tenant calls me and says he wants to buy, he says he's got an opportunity to buy a property. He asked me if I'd let him out of his lease. And I said, you know what? Yeah, sure, I will. I go, what do you got? He says, well, this guy I know, he wants to sell me his insurance office. Well, it turns out it was the exact same guy that I had called 2 weeks earlier that didn't want to sell to me. He just said he didn't want to sell it. But on the golf course, where he's talking to this guy, that my tenant, he tells him, he says, look, I will, he said, I'll sell it to you, and he made him a great offer. And then this guy, while he's talking to me, asking me if I'll let him out of his lease to buy this other property, he starts talking himself out of buying the property. He goes, you know what, Tom, I know I'm not going to buy it, never mind. I go, no, wait a minute. I'm gonna come, I said, I'm gonna help you buy this, or I'll buy it. I said, so I'll come down there. And I immediately turned my truck around, went over, ran inside, talked to him. I said, man, let's go right now. And so I took him down, straight down to the other guy's office, and we wrote it up right there. We just wrote it up right there. We wrote it up right there, and I told the guy that I brought down there, I said, look, you can buy this thing, I'll buy it with you. I said, but you got to get it. This is a great deal. I said, you can either buy it, and I said, if you don't want to buy it, I said, I'll give you $10,000, and I'll just take your position on it. So when I went down there, I wrote it all up for him to buy it. Actually, I wrote that we were buying it together, and I said, and then I told him, you can buy it by yourself, or we can buy it together, totally up to you. And so what happened was 2 weeks later, he says, you know what, Tom? He goes, I'd just rather have the 10 grand. And so I gave him $10,000, and I took it over and I bought it myself. And it was a great deal. I mean, a super deal. We're talking, more than six-figure profit. So it was a good one. So anyways, let's see here. I'm going to check something. All right, so anybody got any questions? I'm sure we're going to get one. So MJ, without telling us where your property is, what do you got going? Well, yeah, don't tell, I wouldn't, don't be too specific. You don't want to, All right, we got rid of dumbass. All right. Wow. That sounds good, man. What kind of terms, or did you get any terms, or you just have to pay cash? Was it a tax auction? Is there a redemption period? Cool. But is there a redemption period? Is it like a tax auction? They can come back and take it back. All right, very cool. Yeah, I'll tell you an interesting story, and this is a rock's throw from here as well. There's a huge green belt that goes all around this beautiful track. I mean, very, very large expanse. This thing's miles long. And I probably told this story before, but it turns out this green belt was just a lot by itself, considered a lot, and it had taxes due on it, and it went to tax sale, and everybody's been enjoying this thing for 20 plus years. Well, one guy at the tax sale, he sees this thing and, wow, this is fantastic. I mean, it's worth millions. And so he bids on it, and he gets it for like 26 or 1,000 or 40,000, something like that. And it was a small amount, something like that. So anyways, he walks over there, and he's standing next to some other man's property, and he's looking out at his land. He's just checking it out, and somebody says, "Hey, can I help you?" And he goes, "Oh, I'm just checking out my property." He goes, "Where do you mean? Where's your property?" He goes, "Oh, right down here." He goes, "That's not your property." He goes, "That's the green belt. That belongs to everyone here." And he should never have opened his mouth, which is another thing. Better to keep your mouth closed in a lot of situations. And so anyways, he's looking at, he goes, "No," he goes, "I bought this at the tax sale." Well, there was that redemption period. Well, this neighbor was like, "Oh no, not my precious green belt." He doesn't want a house behind his house. And so he rallies the neighbors together. They go down there and they pay, and they get the lot back, and now it's paid for and taken care of. But anyhow, that guy could have made millions if he just would have kept quiet. And I can see both sides of this, of course, but dang, this guy like had a lottery ticket that he had everything scratched off and was going to win. Good. Yeah. Do I see a recession? Yeah. Look, I would say yeah. I do. I think if Trump wasn't in there, we wouldn't be doing nearly as well as we are, because confidence of business is restored, and our exports are way up, which they wouldn't have been otherwise. So I think, though, that we should have already been declining, but we have things preventing it from happening now. And who knows, maybe we'll avoid it. But all it takes is the interest rates to be corrected. Our interest rates are, historically low. They're historically low right now. And, I mean, for the last 10 years, they've been crazy low. Give you an example. I borrowed $3 million, a little over $3 million, okay, in 2008, right before the big bank bailout and the last big hit we took. That was when the bank bailout hit. That was harsh. And, this is when all the banks were, closing up, and, all the Wall Street stuff was going to hell. Well, I borrowed that $3 million at like 5.5%, okay? And I borrowed it against what they call the LIBOR. That's the London LIBOR stands for London International Bank Organization or something. I can't remember, but it's based on in the UK, and their rate follows our federal rate, and so I got at the time the LIBOR rate was 3%. I was paying 2.5 over LIBOR. Okay. So I was paying 2.5 plus the 3, 5.5%. Well, when we had that recession, they countered it by just, they had like an emergency fund. They brought the interest rates way down. The Fed did. So they brought the interest rates down 3%. So I started saving 3% on $3 million. That's $90,000 a year. So even though we went into a recession, and it was hurting me too, because, man, I just had a restaurant I redid. I was about to flip, and restaurant guys, they just don't, I mean, 99% of them, they're not really well liked by the banks. And don't get me wrong, there's some great restaurant people that, you know, deserve great credit and everything else, but it's a high risk. Restaurants fail all the time. So I had this restaurant I'm ready to sell, the real estate, and I can't sell it because the banks just don't want to loan to restaurant people, period, in general. So all of a sudden I'm kind of stuck with that. But this 3%, that you know, that saved me whatever, roughly, I don't know, $7,800 a month, just in payments and interest alone, a month, like that, because that's how fast it went down. So because the LIBOR rate went down to basically 0. So I was paying like 2 5/8. I've been paying 5.5. I think it was down to 1/8%. So 1/8 of 1%. So all of a sudden I'm saving that. Now, you talk about a recession. Well, here's where a recession comes in. When the interest rates go back up, that's when it's deathly to everything, really. I mean, commercial property is harder to sell. You can't sell it for as much because they have to factor in the payment, because the payment's higher. So now they can't pay as much for it. So same with the house, because, you know, in general, people are like, they buy homes in general, 99% or say 80% anyways. They're not, how much is this house? How much a month is this house? And that's why housing can just go up so high, so drastically. When the interest rates goes down, all people care about is how much their monthly payment is and how much they can afford to pay. So, you know, a house might be worth $300,000, but all they're thinking is it $1,800 a month? I can afford that. Well, $1,800 a month used to pay for a $300,000 mortgage. Now it'll pay for a $400,000 mortgage. So the guy selling it, smart, he raises the price to $400,000, and the people that, you know, don't think so clearly with their math, they just think, oh, I can afford this, and they go ahead and, you know, they're more per month. Yeah, I'm a net guy. I want to know what's this is going to cost and exactly, and, you know, I mean, I want to make my money on the purchase. And so anyhow, so yes, if interest rates keep going up, and they've been going up just not very much, you know, but they are going up, which is good. It's a good sign for us, for the economy, but it can be devastating on the houses. That's why I won't ever hold a whole lot of houses, or the houses that I have held, you know, I'm holding them for my kids. You know, I don't really care about, they're not like a great investment. They're more, I'm just holding them because they're prime, they're beautiful, and they're not far from my own home, and I want my kids to live near me if they can, and in worst cases, you know, they'll sell it and, you know, whatever. But I'm not giving them anything. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not just giving my kids, they're not going to be kids, they'll be, you know, adults in their 40s when they get my stuff. But yeah, so yeah, I do see it coming. And you know, a lot of times, you know, if industry closes, you know, if they close a car plant or something, you know, that can be devastating to an area. That's one thing. But as far as the you know, a recession coming, you know, I think it's inevitable. It always happens. You know, we've been in kind of a long one, but we've been coming up out of it. But you know, on housing, you know, housing being its own recession in itself, if interest rates go up, you know, the values go down, and so whatever you're holding, it will probably go down in value at some point. So like I tell people, right now is a prime time to sell, because the economy's still doing well, the interest rates are low. That's when you can get the most for your property. That's the great combination: interest rates low and economy good. You know, and if you time it out right, you know, you get that sold, get your hands on cash, and just do what I'm doing, which is just flip. But at some time, if we do have a big recession and things get devastated, listen, I've been in Texas. I've seen newspapers in Texas where they say, bring this coupon and get 10% off a house this weekend, because that's how many houses were owned by the bank. If you bought it on a Sunday that weekend, they'd give you a coupon. You get another, you know, 10 grand off or 2 grand off. I mean, so many houses were like $30,000 to $40,000 that used to be $100,000 houses. In Texas, I'm talking more than 20 years ago. Apartment buildings that I bought an apartment building that was I saw where it sold for $1,050,000, and then it went back to the bank, sold for $720,000, went back to the bank, sold for $510,000, I think, went back to the bank again, and that's when I bought it for $340,000. So that's a recession coming down where a property went back to the bank 3 or 4 times before it really hit rock bottom. In fact, even a buddy of mine, he bought a couple of high-end condos in Vegas 10 years ago, and then they had their little recession over there in 2008, and it was devastating. He thought he was getting a deal on them at the time when he bought them for, I don't know, $400,000, and now they went down to like, I don't know, $300,000, and so he let them go. He gave them up, and then they went down to $250,000, and then he went back and bought 2 more, and then they went down again. And he just got rid of them. But yeah, things don't stay up. I mean, I'll tell you right now, I'm not going to fool you about real estate. It goes up and down, and like my hedge against things going up and down is I buy rentals. I buy a lot of rentals, and I don't mean house rentals. I don't like house rentals. I like houses to buy and flip. That's it. But I like commercial, office, industrial. I like stuff that's near town, very close in. I don't like stuff that's far out. I like stuff that's prime, because even in tough times, and I, you know, I get great deals on the stuff so that I can rent my stuff cheap if I need to. Yeah. Let me come back to that, MJ. But yeah, so I don't think. I lost my train of thought. I'll go to MJ's question. Do I think house flipping shows? No, I don't think they're based in reality. I mean, I'm in all honesty, I haven't watched a bunch of them, but what I have seen is just unrealistic, because I know how deals are had. I know how, you know, I've bought, you know, hundreds of properties, and you know, it's not like, oh, let's look at this one that's in the MLS. Let's go talk to the realtor and chat and walk through the house, and here's my offer. And I mean, I've had some a little bit like that, but the idea that you're just going to go in and get a great deal from a realtor, and then you know, if it's on the MLS, there's plenty of people out there that are pretty savvy that will buy, so you have competition there. But I mean, I think sometimes what I've seen, it looks like they buy a house for, you know, $350,000, they put $50,000 in it, and then they sell it for $450,000, and so yeah, it looks like they made $50,000, but you know, they went through a remodeling process. That takes time. So you're paying interest on a $300,000 loan for 6 months. So that's money. And there's also taxes on that property for those 6 months that you're sitting there remodeling it. So, or, you know, maybe it's 3 months. It doesn't matter. Either way, I'm not going to fork out $350,000 to make 50 over a period of 4 or 5 months. Okay, hard money lenders. Okay, it's not even a term I'm that familiar with, to be quite honest. You know, I have great credit. I can borrow money from the bank. I have lines of credit. But I mean, hard money, I think you're just talking about lenders, right? Private lenders. Would you confirm, is that what you mean when you say hard money? People that just loan you cash, or not cash, green cash, but they'll loan you money. Private lenders, is that what you're talking about, MJ? All right. Oh, at high interest rates. I don't know. I don't borrow money at high interest rates. So, you know, in all honesty, I haven't had to borrow money at a high interest rate ever. I remember I paid 18% on when I bought a Toyota pickup when I had terrible credit, when I was 17 or 18, Norwest Financial. I paid 18% a month, or 18% annually on a $2,000 loan. But I'm a number counter, so I'm sensitive to that. I don't like borrowing money on credit cards. I pay them off. You know, I just always have. I've been disciplined, and I can tell you, if you can get an American Express card, is the best thing you ever do. The younger you are, for your kids too, the younger you are, the better. Because American Express, that bill is due at the end of the month, every month, the entire balance. And that's what I started with, was an American Express card. I'd buy materials for my cabinet shop, and I'd have to pay it at the end of the month. But it's great training because it stops you from borrowing more than you can pay back. It really keeps you in check. So I urge everybody to get American Express, use American Express, or at the very minimum, try to discipline yourself, pay your entire balance off at the end of every month. Yeah. And so I love American Express. And in fact, it's funny, they have a thing, I think it's called the black card or something. And I thought, how come I don't have a black card? It's like kind of it's like the, the ultimate cool, I guess, Not that I ever care about that, to be honest. But I inquired, I said, hey, what's the deal with this? They go, oh, it's by invitation only. I said, well, what's the minimum, that they expect people to spend, annually on a card like that? And they go, well, here, let's look at your account. And they go, oh, Tom, they go, you spend twice what's required to qualify. they want you to spend about $200,000 a year on that card, and I spent about $400,000 on American Express. I mean, I use American Express for a lot of different things, but in fact, it's kind of cool too, because when I go onto Amazon to go buy gifts and things or take a vacation, I usually have such a huge American Express point credit that I never have to pay for a thing. I just simply write it off or use my American Express rewards account that are right there through Amazon. If you don't know that, that's good to know. If you have American Express points, link them to your Amazon, and when you got to buy somebody a gift or buy whatever you're buying, it'll say you want to use your points. You have $5,000 in points or whatever it is. You can use those. So yeah, so back to the hard lenders. Look, when I bought this lake house, I bought that. I think I mentioned it in one of my other podcasts or whatever we call this. We're doing streaming. I went in. I talked to you call him a hard money lender. I only pay 4% interest, but I said, hey, you got any money you want to loan? And he says, no, not really, Tom. Because I borrowed $500,000 from him. He in Starbucks. He said, do you need any money? I said, well, yeah. How much you got? He said, well, how much you want to borrow? I said, man, I'll borrow $700,000. He said, well, I can probably do $500. And I said, okay, I'll take it. And this is somebody I know, but this is a lawyer, and I went into his office because he was going to write a note for me, a promissory note for $100,000. I use him to write promissory notes once in a while when I want to borrow money. I borrow money from friends and family as a favor to them, because I pay 4% and the bank's only paying them less than 1%. So the idea that I mean, I obviously don't have to borrow from a hard money lender or high interest, but and listen, I don't advise anybody borrow money from family unless you really know you can pay it back. I've never borrowed money I couldn't pay back, or that I knew I couldn't pay back, and I've never been optimistic and fooled myself either. But I'll borrow money here and there. I'll borrow, from friends and family. I had a neighbor that he had $100,000 he didn't know what to do with. I said, look, I'll give you 4%. I'll borrow it for 6 months at 4%. Borrow it, I just bought it, a building or a house or something. I don't know what I did with the money. But so it's a great position to be in there, but there's plenty of money out there. And just consider this, people right now, they can't get 1% on their money. They can't get 1% on their money in the bank. So there's every incentive for people to carry a note if they're selling a property, if they're going to put the money in the bank anyways. But there's also good incentive for people to loan you money at 4% or whatever, 5%, 6%. I mean, even if you borrowed at 10%, not that I'm suggesting you do, but if you got a property that you can buy that's worth $200,000 and you're buying it for $100,000, borrow it, borrow $100,000, and pay 10%. That's your interest rate. That's nothing. If you flip it in 2 months, that money didn't cost you $2,000. So that's a awesome deal for you. But so like I said, like on the lake house, the lake house deal that I just bought, I was closing it at the same office, and I said, hey, you got any money to loan? He goes, nah, Tom, I don't really have any money. He goes, And I go, well, I don't need that much. He goes, well, he goes, I think I only have about 100 grand. See, to him, that was just a little bit of money. I said, hey, I only need 80. I'm going to buy this house. And so I borrowed all $80,000 to close that deal. And I borrowed it interest only. I have to pay him back in, I think, 1 year, maybe 2 years. I have to check. I can't remember. But so I borrowed that, and I thought it was kind of neat. It gives me another kind of a nothing down deal, although, you know, 100% financed. But the reason I got that house, you know, A, he knows me. He knows I'm smart. He knows I know value. He didn't check it even. You know, he just said, okay, it's a deal, Tom. You know, house near the lake. We'll loan you 80 grand, no problem. So again, that was just like that. Went into close, got the money, no bank, no nothing. And I mean, I could have wrote a check for it. Even when I keep myself fairly broke, just so you know, I like to keep my money invested. But I have several lines of credit. So if I need money, I can say I'm broke and be honest. There's not a lot of money in the bank at the moment. But rents come in every month, so then there's always a little more piling up each month, always. But I know if something really turns me on and I really want it, I can just write a check for it and borrow against a line of credit. And that's where you guys want to be too at some point. You want to have enough equity in properties that if you need money, you can just write a check and they'll give you an overdraft, and I'm not even talking about being secured by your real estate. They'll just give you lines of credit based on your banking, and then eventually, they'll assign you a special banker when you become a high net worth individual, and and you'll get more perks. But it's you earn it. It's not something that's just given to you. You earn it. You earn it. You earn it by building your reputation and doing a great job and making money and borrowing lots of money and paying lots of money back. That's how you get there. So, anyways, hey Joe, hope you enjoyed your vacation. But that's how it works, man. It's all hard work, but it's not nearly as hard as working your whole life and not investing. So, there's a joke I say. And not everybody likes it, but I always say, if you ever meet a realtor that loses all their money, or even a lawyer, if you ever meet a realtor that loses all their money, don't feel bad because they never earned it anyways. Now that's not exactly true, but commission on real estate, and it's something always to consider. Never feel bad about negotiating commission down. I mean, it's the same amount of work to sell a $100,000 property at 6% as it is to sell $1 million property at 6%. So don't ever feel bad about telling an agent that you want to sell this at a 4% commission if it's $1 million property. I mean, they're going to make a hell of a lot more money on that $1 million property you're selling at 4% than they make taking 6% on a $100,000 property. But hey, we are extremely low on battery, at least on my laptop, which means my phone is probably close, which is what we're recording with. So I'm gonna wrap it up. Yeah, it went by pretty quick. Yeah, thanks, Highland. Appreciate you watching. And man, I hope you guys just dig, man. Just shop right now. Just in your own neighborhood. Just really just go through the streets in your own neighborhood, and look for a house that's not a crappy yard, ripped up blinds. Thanks, Raheem. You too. Look for signs of trouble, distress, and because that's the first indication, and those are the things. That's not a sign. But when you see an estate sale, go to every estate sale you see, and you might find a little decent deal. You saw my folding bike. I'm real happy about that. I also got a cool little chrome. This is not big money stuff, but it's fun stuff. But I got an old retro Sunbeam mixer for $20 the other day. I gave it to somebody that really likes it. But go to those estate sales, because it means somebody died, and they probably own the home, and the home's going to be for sale next. So you want to be the first one there. And when you do walk in and you ask, hey, who owns the property? Just kind of be cool and quiet about it, because, you don't want to say, hey, is the property for sale? And then everybody that's in the room hears you, because now their ears perk up, and maybe somebody in there might want to buy it, and now you just invited your competition. Because believe me, people go into those estate sales without even a clue, thinking that the house might be for sale. So there's no reason for you to enlighten everybody. Just try to do it on the quiet, and then you know, maybe you can buy it quietly and with not much competition. So hey, I'm gonna go now. I appreciate everybody tuning in, and it was kind of weird having the one. I don't know what the problem is, but anyways, it's a shame, but anyways, that is a guy that is going nowhere, or it's probably just a kid, who knows. But anyways, thanks for watching, and Flip Anything, sure to join my Twitter if you can, and please share it out. And got some cool things coming. Got some app stuff I want to share with you guys pretty soon that I think's really cool, really cool. So anyhow, that's it. So I'll say goodnight, and thanks again to everybody for watching, and we'll talk to you. I think I got a video I'll probably release tomorrow. I think next week, look for this one. I got this barber shop. I got a barber that's in one of the commercial project I bought a couple years ago, and he's expanded to double the size of his company. He does hair, really cool, really good hair cutter. And anyways, do a big long interview with him, and he's just so passionate about what he does. It's fun to watch. You know, you're not going to make any money, or you know, not a lot to learn about making money, but there certainly is something to be said about, you know, having a passion for what you do. It's really a cool video. So hope to release that Monday. So look for that Monday, and that'll be World's Greatest Barber or something like that. So hey, have a great night, guys. We'll see you, and gals.